get 2 volunteers to come and hold this?
Volunteers here. It's part of the show. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, are we doing a mic check now?
We can if you'd like. You gotta say mic check first.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Hi.
Hi.
This is awesome.
This is awesome.
So 16 years ago,
So 16 years ago,
I wrote a musical
I wrote a musical
called The Big Bank
called The Big Bank
with my brother.
with my brother.
And it just happens
And it just happens
that it's exactly about everything
that's happening
right now.
right now.
But that shouldn't surprise anybody.
But that shouldn't surprise
We're
anybody.
going to pass these cards out,
We're going to pass these cards out,
and that'll give you a lot of information
and that'll give you a lot of information
about what we're trying to do.
about what we're trying to do.
We just had a successful show at the New York Musical Festival. But producers don't like our show. People like our show. Because producers like banks. And banks like producers. Not all of them. A lot of them. So we are looking to put the show on. With your help. And we started a Kickstarter campaign. To put this show on. And you can get tickets in advance and help us put on the show. I got one. First, we're gonna. You don't need the mic check anymore until we're gonna have everybody. If you have lyrics, there's some. Look, hand some lyrics out, and we're gonna teach you the chorus to the Banks theme with a mic check of just how the music goes. So, if you could just repeat after me, it goes like this.
We will dance.
We take the things you used to call your own.
We take the things you used to call your own.
We repossess.
Thank you.
We redistribute every car and phone. We redistribute every car and phone. We repossess. We make you wish you'd never taken a loan. We wish you wish you'd never taken a loan. Your pain is our gain. Our joy is your sorrow. We repossess and strip ya. Everybody now to the Well, that's the second end, but you'll get it. So, the Big Bank is about this bank that loves to foreclose on people. That's their greatest joy. And so the show starts with another number about the economy and the bank and foreclosing on people, and they just love it. And the big theme of that song is that they talk to their boss, and the boss says, "Let them eat cake." Of course. Yeah, like I talked to my boss, she said, "No, let them eat cake." And then the boss comes in, and one of the new bankers who just got over his internship and is now a full-fledged member of the Big Bank, he doesn't quite know what's going on. He's like, "Well, I was going to foreclose on them, but they said they would have their payment in, and they promised." And she's like, "Oh, really? They promised? Was that a pinky promise? Did they cross their heart and hope to die?" Let me tell you something. And actually, she's sitting on him when she says this. She says, "Relationship consists of give and take. Without this equilibrium, a chunk would never make. So I employ this added goal that I might be afraid. I'll do my part most graciously and take to the very end. I pockets or savings, you'll play with your accounts. I'll do my best to calm your fears, I'll offer my support. Don't think that I am insincere when I take your butt to court. Fill my heart with elation, I'll be taking a tour. Beg for renegotiation, unknowingly you'll give me a signature. Haven't you heard? Life's unfair, we'll be forevermore. Say goodbye to dreams of a billionaire as I take you to the door.
We make the things you used to call your own. We redistribute every car and phone.
We possess, we make you wish
you'd never taken a loan. Your
pain
is our gain. Our joy is your sorrow. We repossess and strip at the bone.
I'll take your little fancy car. Gotta be birthday with you, or come to buy your lucky star. My mission don't need permission, I take for goodness sake. You sign what's yours is mine, my bank will never break.
I'll take your
My Harry, I'll take your Aunt Louise, your future generations and your oldest memories. Occupation got authorization. What more in this organization? Get a standing ovation for throwing someone out and then throwing someone out and then throwing someone out and then. We make the things we used to call your own.
every car and phone.
We make you wish you'd never taken a loan. Your pain is our gain. Our joy is your sorrow. We repossess and take one more time. We take the things we used to call your own. We repossess, we redistribute every car and phone. We repossess, we make you wish you'd never taken a loan. Your pain is our gain. Our joy is your sorrow. We repossess and strip you. Then there's one banker who has lost his passion for repossession, and he's starting to question what he's doing with his life. And he gets his first foreclosure assignment of the show, and he's there to foreclose on Clarence and Parsley Underwood. And they have this magazine called, and we wrote this 16 years ago. They have a magazine called, what's it called?
Radical Marxist Ecology Quarterly Journal Review.
Radical Marxist Ecology Quarterly Journal Review. This total throwback from the 60s, and his daughter who he's homeschooling. And the first thing that we see is that they're trying to save the last spotted turkey buzzard in the tri-state area. He's an environmentalist, and he's trying to save the last spotted turkey buzzard in the tri-state area that's perched on the Whitestone Bridge, or on the Verrazano, whatever. We'll decide. But so they got their rally. They're about to start. They've got their signs ready to go, and Parsley and Clarence sing this beautiful song about how they're going to save the world together. And then Stuart Stevens, the guy who's no longer into this foreclosure thing, comes to foreclose on them, and he feels really bad for what he's doing, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're going to take her home. And then he walks out and he sings his song, his lament about what have I done again. And he sings about this lost innocence that he used to know about the language. He used to be a poet, and he always dreamed of being a poet, and he sings Sunlight Moonrise, and he misses the time that he used to know this language. And then Clarence and Parsley, they end up saving the bird, and the bird comes back to their place. And now we changed the musical because Clarence used to want to blow up the bank. That was 16 years ago, and now it's not so funny. So the last time we put on the show, we realized that people didn't, the whole bombing of the bank thing, it used to end with him running into the bank with a bomb strapped to him. It just doesn't work anymore. But what does work is that when the bird comes back to their place and Parsley is teaching the bird about Marxism and revolutions, the bird says, quack, quack, quack. And she says, don't you just ever say tweet, tweet? I've got a great idea, Daddy. We can tweet a revolution. So they decide to tweet the revolution, but actually the dad says it's going to take too long. So instead, he sends Parsley into the bank dressed as a Girl Scout with a cake, and she's going to infiltrate and go into the computer network and delete their mortgage file. That's the plan. Well, Parsley goes to the bank, but she doesn't have a mother because her mother left when she was born, and she kind of falls in love with the boss of the bank because she's this big, powerful woman, and Parsley, well, she's a kind of precocious girl who really wants to succeed, and she sees this woman, so she ends up working at the bank. Her father doesn't like that very much, so he ends up starting to tweet that revolution behind her back. Long story short, 2-hour musical short, the boss goes to Jerusalem. She's been waiting for this great gig because they're going to foreclose on the Archbishop of Jerusalem that's a client of theirs, and she wants that gig, and she finally gets it. Actually, the end of the... Oh, I forgot to tell you, wait. Stuart ends up falling in love with Iris, who owns a flower shop that he's supposed to foreclose on. So then at the end of the first act, the boss and the bankers basically force him to foreclose on her. It's this big, crazy scene where the bankers are saying $300,000 a year suddenly will just disappear if you can foreclose on the flower girl right here. And they basically attack him, and he signs the paper, and she's foreclosed on, so she's terribly distraught, of course. She loses her flower shop, and then they end up at the zoo. It's a long story.
You'll have to see the show.
But actually, oh, this one's really good. I will do it. Look at all the creatures. All right, so they go to the zoo with Parsley because the bird ends up at the zoo, and then she meets her father, and they all follow her there, and they end up at the zoo. And this is when Stuart has his revelation that actually being a banker is a lot like being a creature in the zoo. And they're all finally there, and they look around, and he says, look at all the creatures in the zoo. Look a little bit like me and you. Look at all their features, they're all cage creatures. They're out of the reaches of the sky, so look at all the creatures in the zoo. A little bit like me and you. Look at all their features, they're all cage creatures. They're out of the reaches of the sky, so make it to the cubicle right in the nick of time. Aren't they so gullible, they think that this is fine. Sit for many hours in a single spot. Wonder why I'm sour, well they look like me a lot. And then Stuart basically has a moment where everybody else freezes, and he says, I don't look like them, I've never been the same, and I'm going to go back to her on one knee, and we're going to live happily ever after. And I quit. And he quits the bank, and it's this huge moment, and he's free, and then he sings a beautiful song about being free, and the boss, meanwhile, the whole second act, has been in Jerusalem to foreclose on the Archbishop. By the end of the show, a huge throng of protesters has arrived at the bank, Occupy the Big Bank, and they're all there ready to foreclose on the bank with Clarence. Meanwhile, Parsley's working at the bank, and she comes outside and says, Daddy, what are you doing? You can't do this. He says, you're just like one of them. Come out here and protest with us. We're taking the bank back. The people are taking the bank back. And then the boss comes back from Jerusalem, and she goes out into the steps of the bank in front of all the protesters, many more people than that are here right now. And she says, wait, don't come in yet. Oh, so no, just try to sing along, especially the second one. Wait, don't come in yet. I got to tell you what happened on my trip to Jerusalem. You see, there I was in that old cathedral. I had the bishop down on his knees. Suddenly there was lightning so frightening that I could swear a voice spoke to me. It said, your life is in the hands of the Lord. He giveth and he taketh away. I made a quick translation, and it was revelation, because this is what the voice meant. Life is alone.
Don't bring on tomorrow, 'cause every day is borrowed. Love is all that matters, not what you own. Remember that your life is but alone.
The bishop and the clergy were shaken when I handed over the deed. Instead of repossession, I gave my first confession, and in a flash my conscience was free. Those wise men from the east, they did show me how the road to heaven is paved. They overlooked my blindness and treated me with kindness. Brothers and sisters, your boss has been saved. Life alone.
Don't wake up tomorrow, 'cause every day is borrowed. Love is all that matters, not what you own.
Everybody now.
Life is alone.
Tomorrow, 'cause every day is borrowed. Sorrow doesn't matter what you cause. Life is alone.
Love thy neighbor fully.